Welcome in to the Rockies Insider. I'm your Rockies Insider, Patrick Lyons, and we got to talk post game about the series broke even with the Miami Marlins. Did lose on Thursday, 12-8 after a nice win, 8-2 on Wednesday night. Ultimately, a series split this week in Colorado against the Marlins, but season-long loss, 5 out of 7 against the Miami Marlins. And you think back to all the times where the Rockies really dominated the Marlins going back. In fact, 13-4 at home against the Marlins since 2019. Yet, unfortunately, this season, they can't get the series win at home, and they continue to have those struggles against teams under 500 since June 1st, 6-10 against those with more losses than wins. Matthew already in the chat jumping in. We're going to talk about whoever farms our shortstop talent needs a raise, star after star, even Iglesias for a period of time, right? For that one season in 2022. Didn't pan out, was a talent. That's right. Rockies have had a lot of really great shortstops, and we'll get to Ezequiel Tovar today and what he was able to do. The class of young shortstops he was able to join all time, as well as what he was able to do younger and quicker than anyone else in Rockies history. He and Brendan Rodgers, both major highlights during Thursday's unfortunate 12-8 loss. Marlins were able to score in 5 consecutive innings. First time they've done that all year. Season high, 18 hits. Not what you were really expecting out of this young squad. And one bright spot, sort of a silver lining again for those hardcore Rockies fans out there. The pitcher who got the win for the Marlins today, Jesus Tinoco. That's right. 9 years ago, over 9 years ago, he was one of those prospect pieces in the 2015 Troy Tulowitzki trade with the Toronto Blue Jays. Tinoco earns his first career win. He does it at Coors Field in Colorado, but it's as a member of the Miami Marlins. So that's a neat little wrinkle today. Also, you might have noticed that there was a double steal in the 4th inning. Ali Sanchez ended up stealing home. It was a double steal. It wasn't a straight steal like Ryan McMahon had against Yasmani Grandal earlier this year. But a throw down to second. Rockies had it scouted right. Tovar, unfortunately, wasn't able to execute. So certainly no fault of Drew Romo, who, as you may have heard, has somewhat of the yips in a sense. Definitely has it under control. You may notice when he throws the ball back to the pitcher, whether there's runners on or not, it's somewhat of a shot put motion back to the pitcher. So some teams will be aggressive and try to run on that. We did see that Wednesday night where they were able to take advantage of that throw back to the pitcher. But you lay down a bunt or there's going to be a stealing play. Romo is up and firing, has that pop time under 2 seconds, slightly above average for a catcher. So still young, still has a lot of development. We're seeing the offense at the plate. Did a nice job today. Offensively, he had himself another RBI. So in general, future still bright for Drew Romo, but that's one of those areas of concern that you hope doesn't rear its head. Has it under control, but it's something worth watching and seeing how teams respond and react to that. I also bring up the Ali Sanchez stolen base of home because he eventually stole second later on. And as far as I can see, this was not in the Rockies notes from their communications department, who've do an amazing job. And a lot of the stuff I'm going to be spouting out today about Ezequiel Tovar come directly from them. So tip of the cap. But I believe Ali Sanchez is the first starting catcher to ever steal 2 bases here at Coors Field as an opposing player. So if you're at the game, you saw that. Pretty neat. But now let's get to the Rockies. Let's get to the good stuff. Brendan Rodgers entering this game, you might have seen it if you were watching the game, Rockies TV, had a 1209 OPS against the Marlins, highest active on base plus slugging, minimum 50 at-bats, goes out and has 2 more home runs. His second multi-homer game. In fact, he only has 2. And they both come against the Miami Marlins. You might remember his first on June 1st, 2022. He had himself 2 and then caps it off with the walk-off home run in the 10th inning. So I was a little surprised that Rodgers only has 2 multi-homer games, but you go and look at his page and you see 44 home runs since his debut in 2019. And you say, okay, that's kind of par for the course. That's about 9% of his home runs have been clustered together in multi-homer games. So does a nice job there. Bretton Doyle does himself a nice job with his 22nd home run of the season. Still the team leader. He has got 15 of his 22 home runs this year. They've actually come since July 1st. He was hitting really well those first 2 months of the season, more for batting average and for extra bases, a lot of doubles as well. But really, it was July 1st where he started to heat up. And unfortunately, had he started to heat up on the home run side of things a week or two earlier, I think we would have very much seen him in Dallas, in Arlington, Texas for the All-Star game, because he finished just a little bit short of getting that selection to the Midsummer Classic. But 15 of 22 since July 1st, his 8th game with 3 or more hits. And again, 4th since July 1st. He's slashing 306, 367, 644 since the calendar has turned to July. 12 doubles, 2 triples, and those 15 homers. But let's get to the man of the hour, the man of the last 2+ seasons, Ezequiel Tovar. He's been absolutely fantastic. Reaches 39 doubles on Wednesday night. And then just when it looks like, okay, he might have to wait a while. We've heard Brenton Doyle talk about how he might have been pressing a little bit, couldn't wait to get to home run number 20 so he could be a part of that 2020 club, 20 homers, 20 stolen bases. Was Tovar thinking about that to a degree? Maybe, but he was able to get it done immediately, gets his 40th double, youngest in Rockies history, does it in his age 22 season. He's 23 right now, but he's played most of his season as a 22-year-old. So the line of demarcation is July 1st. So that's why for Charlie Blackmon, you look and say, he's 38, but this is his age 37 season, because the first half of the year he plays as a 37-year-old. And then if your birthday's in the second half, after July 1st, I should say, then, okay, they don't count that year against you, if you will. Tovar becomes the 4th shortstop in big league history with 300 hits, 75 doubles, and 35 home runs prior to their age 30 season. The others to do it, Carlos Correa, Alex Rodriguez, and Cal Ripken Jr. So one Hall of Famer, one with Hall of Fame numbers who's being kept out, and then one that Carlos Correa, look, we'll see what happens going forward. Certainly, if he can get the Twins in the right path, finish a little bit higher in the MVP voting, he's not going to top Aaron Judge, but Carlos Correa, the verdict is still out if he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Still very young, still has a ton of postseason experience. That's going to help him when the time comes. But becomes the first Rocky, Ezequiel Tovar, Ezequiel Tovar becomes the second Rockies shortstop with 40 or more doubles. First since Charlie Blackmon to do that, as I said. Second Rockies shortstop with 40 or more doubles. Trevor Story did it in 2018. And you're saying to yourself, wait a minute, Troy Tulowitzki never had 40 doubles? Yes, Troy Tulowitzki never had 40 doubles. He reached 30 twice. 36 was his season high in 2011 at age 26. But a lot of those doubles basically became home runs, was able to reach the 30 homer mark twice in his career. 32 was his career high in 2009 during his age 24 season. So what that says to me is in 2026, maybe that's when we see Tovar break out for those 30 those 30 home runs. Has 21 right now, so still showing a lot of pop. I said that to Buddy today. Like, is there the hope that as he gets older, as he ages, those doubles turn into homers? And yeah, but he was right. 21 home runs right now, so he already does have home run pop. But it's also the type of double that Ezequiel Tovar has been able to hit. They're not all doubles into the gap. Here at Coors Field, behind me, if you're hitting a double into the gap, you're actually hitting a triple into the gap. There are those balls that might drop in just over a second baseman's head. And if you're busting out of the box, you're going to get 2 bases. So Tovar really showing a great combination of power and speed on the bases. Probably would like for the stolen base totals to be a little bit higher. But when he's on the bases, he's aggressive, great base runner, knows how to read things well. Should also point out, Ezequiel Tovar becomes just the 7th shortstop all time with 40 doubles before their age 30, 7th shortstop all time with 40 doubles before their age 23 season, joining Corey Seager, Hanley Ramirez, Alex Rodriguez, Cal Ripken Jr., Lou Boudreau, Hall of Famer if you don't know the name, and Arky Vaughan, also Hall of Famer, Pittsburgh Pirates. So the ceiling, we still don't know about this young man's ceiling. He's doing it defensively, looking great on the diamond, and then when he's in the batter's box, also contributing that way. So it's exciting time. Is he going to ascend to the heights of a Trevor Story, who was able to get multiple all-star appearances? Can he be a Troy Tulowitzki type player who very early on seemed like he was destined for the Hall of Fame? Didn't seem like that was part of the story, the narrative, if you will, for a Trevor Story. But Tulowitzki had that Hall of Fame kind of resume early on, and Tovar, which one is he going to lean towards? Still kind of early, still waiting to see what's going to happen with him. Drew Romo, speaking of young players, turned 23 today on August 29th. No birthday home run for him. Was keeping an eye on that. Had to check out. Had any Rockies catchers ever homered on their birthday? The answer is just one. Only one Rockies catcher had ever homered on his birthday, Kurt Manwaring, in 1999. And Manwaring did it on the road in Cincinnati. So to me, I was saying, hey, this will be the first time a catcher has ever done it in Rockies history at home. So we haven't seen one since, we saw one this year. What am I saying? Charlie Blackmon did it. He's done it now 3 times, Charlie Blackmon. Doyle did it last year. Connor Joe did it in 2021. Blackmon also did it in 2022. So I shouldn't say only one catcher has ever done it, because only 24 times have we ever seen a birthday home run in franchise history. It's only been done by 14 players. Charlie, as I said, has done it 3 times. Todd Helton has the franchise record, as he does with so many things, with 5 birthday home runs. Starting pitcher Bradley Blaylock, 4 innings pitched, gives up 7 runs. Only 6 were earned. A little bit of trouble by some of the defenders with the sun. There was a miscue by Ryan McMahon, a line drive right back at him that went off the edge of his mitt. Didn't even come in and out. It just right off the edge, the bottom of his mitt. Very strange occurrence on that. So Blaylock did come into the game with a 3.06 ERA, and now it takes a little bit of a rise there in his 5th career start, but still very promising. Needs to work on the consistency of quality pitches, according to Bud Black. That's one of the things he's got to work on, and he's going to get that opportunity as a 23-year-old. Jake Bird looked really strong. 2 1/3 innings pitched, only 1 strikeout, but walked just 1, gave up 1 hit. No runs, did a nice job to really settle things down. And it sort of seemed like maybe if the Rockies were going to get back into it, it was when Jake Bird was in the game. Rockies did respond with 2 runs in the bottom of the 6th, but nothing else after that. So they take the loss, 12-8 to the Marlins, to end up splitting the series, to kissing your sister, if you will. Kissing your sister fish. I'm getting off the rail here. On Wednesday's win, got to point out, Aaron Schunk did hit his first career home run almost onto the concourse. Very impressive. Nice pop, nice power. He's actually batting .259 with 3 extra base hits in August. A lot better since batting .115 in July. So he's getting very comfortable. He's starting to show that there could be something there as a potent bat off the bench. Maybe a little bit more pop than an Alan Trejo, who struggled to really get some extra base hits this year. Maybe he can be a Pat Valaika type player coming off the bench in a pitch hit role in days in which Tovar is starting at shortstop, which is going to be most days. So definitely one of those stories to keep an eye out for next season. Rockies, they might not need to go out and get a veteran middle infielder to back up both Rodgers and Tovar. They might already have their guy in Aaron Schunk. So keep an eye on that. Keep your eyes peeled for Michael Toglia, because he's been incredible the way that he's cut down on his strikeouts, and he's added the walk to his game. He drew walks 19 and 20 on Wednesday night, added 21 for the month of August on Thursday in his first plate appearances. But that's the most walks in a calendar month since Nolan Jones drew 20. So he's already surpassed that. And prior to that, Troy Tulowitzki was the last Rocky to draw 20 walks in a month. Actually had 21 in April of 2014. So Troy Tulowitzki, man, talking about him a lot today. That's obviously a good sign, because these young Rockies are doing things like other young players have in the past. So good job for Michael Toglia. Improves his on-base percentage to just under 400 for the month of August. We saw Jeff Criswell bounce back after giving up 3 consecutive home runs to the Yankees over the weekend. He actually struck out 5 over 2 innings on Wednesday night. That's a season high for a Rockies reliever, and actually the first time in Rockies history that a Rockies reliever had struck out 5 over 2 scoreless frames in an outing within his first 4 career games. So Jeff Criswell could, again, be another one of those young Rockies relievers that could be counted on going forward. Now, if you were listening to Wednesday's show, which by now there's been a couple podcasts that have come out since just Wednesday afternoon. You can go back to the Rockies Insider on YouTube to watch the conversation with Eli Sussman of Fish on First. But we talked plenty about Juan Pierre. Well, his name popped up again, so got to mention it. Connor Norby, one of the bigger players that came over from the Baltimore Orioles in that Trevor Rodgers deal. It's been working out well for the Marlins so far. He sits safely in his first 10 games as a Marlin. Second longest hitting streak to begin a stint in Marlins franchise history. The longest hitting streak to begin with the Marlins is 12 games. Juan Pierre in 2003, coming over in that Mike Hampton trade, and Gary Sheffield in 1993. Norby's 8 extra base hits through the first 9 games, also tied with Charles Johnson, another former Rocky, for the franchise record. So good for him. Good for Juan Pierre. Good for Troy Tulowitzki, getting a lot of love as all-time great Rockies. And look, hey, if we're talking about all-time great Rockies, we do have to include Kyle Freeland in that conversation. Absolutely. On Wednesday night, goes out, wasn't able to finish that 6th inning, does give up 1 run over 3, so no quality start, but in 5 2/3 innings pitch, gives up 4 runs. He ends up surpassing Jeff Francis for the 3rd most innings pitched in Colorado Rockies history. The record, Aaron Cook, 1,312.1. Got 1 extra out there. So that will be something that Freeland will probably take him until 2026, until he tops out at that mark. But also in that game, during a 4th inning strikeout of Derek Hill, who had himself a nice week in Denver, Freeland records his 800th career strikeout to become only the 4th Rocky in history to reach that milestone. Again, very impressive. He continues to climb the leaderboard for the Colorado Rockies, and a great representation of this generation of pitchers, both the one that took them to the postseason in back-to-back years in 2017 and 2018, and could really bridge that gap for these young guys that are coming up and be their mentor, be their veteran presence in that rotation. So Freeland continuing to climb up. He also earned his 59th career win, passing Jason Jennings for 5th most all time. 86 is the record by Jorge De La Rosa. Again, that could take more than 2 years. That's what, 27 away. And we know how hard it is to win ball games in this ballpark or anywhere really nowadays. If you have 15 wins, that's virtually 20 wins 10 years ago, right? So that's back-to-back 14-win seasons going forward. We'll see what happens with that. Different era. It's a statistic that maybe doesn't have quite the same value as it did in the past. But Freeland, start number 195 on Wednesday. That means he should tie or move ahead of Jorge De La Rosa for 2nd most starts. De La Rosa had 200, so will he get 5 more this year? Most certainly. Will he get 6? Also, I think very probable. He'll go into 2nd place all-time in Rockies history. Aaron Cook tops with 206. So, again, by the end of next season, we're going to see Freeland continue to climb up that leaderboard and really maybe finish with number 1 in just about every category. Strikeout's going to be a hard one, topping Ubaldo Jimenez, especially at the rate in which Freeland is going at this point in his career. Never really was a big strikeout pitcher. That's fine. He gets outs other ways. He gets his outs with double plays. He absolutely does. I believe he's got 127 in his career. Record is Aaron Cook, 187. I'll have to ask Freeland this week, what record does he want most? And yeah, I'm sure he wants all of them in many ways. He's a competitor. But ground into double plays, I think that's been a hallmark of his career, especially when you look at him as being one of the best in the game since he's come up. Most ground into double plays by any starting pitcher, and yet he doesn't have it in franchise history. So being able to top Aaron Cook at some point, I think, is going to be a real positive one there. Your minor league minute, let's talk about Sterling Thompson, because probably doesn't get enough press, doesn't get enough publicity, especially when you have other outfielders like Ezequiel Fernandez and Zach Veen getting the call up to AAA Albuquerque. Sterling Thompson had a walk-off double on Wednesday night in Birmingham during a 4-3 win for the Yard Goats. Went 2 for 3, double, RBI, 2 walks, is 4 for 11 with 2 doubles and 2 RBI over his last 3 games. If you look at his numbers, they're not going to jump off the page, and that's okay for 2 reasons. 1, it's still okay. He's developing as a player. And 2, what's also okay when numbers don't jump off is you have to understand the context of the league that the player is in. And the Eastern League is a little bit more of a pitcher's league. It's challenging. It's very challenging, especially in those colder months, April, early May. It's going to be rainy, not so snowy as much, but definitely cold and rainy. And they're just more pitchers' ballparks. The ball's not flying. There's humidity in the air. So when you see Thompson hitting 248 with a 717 OPS, 12 homers, and 52 RBI, yeah, you'd like 20 homers, you'd like 80 RBI, you'd like him to be hitting a little bit closer to 300. Sure, that would put him in, top 25 prospect standings in all of baseball. But in the Eastern League, those are really solid numbers. We'll wait and see what happens when he gets to the next step. The real question, I think, for Sterling Thompson and for this organization is what position is he going to play going forward? So far this year, 70 games in left field, 11 at first base, 24 as DH. And you hear those positions and you go, Rockies are pretty much set there, right? They've got guys. DH, you don't want to clog up because you want to give guys a day off of their feet so that they can just hit. And look, you see what Shohei Ohtani is able to do when he just has to focus on hitting. That's kind of nice, right? But the DH you don't want to clog up. And you know what? If whether or not Charlie Blackmon comes back or not remains to be seen. But if Chris Bryant's going to stick around on the roster, he then becomes your DH most days. Not all the time, but most days. And if he's healthy and productive, you're going to probably want to keep him in there. And if he's not, well, then you're going to free up that spot just a little bit. So you don't want to block it with a player that is a true DH that doesn't have a position. There's plenty of outfielders. Thompson's probably 6th on the outfield depth chart behind Nolan Jones, Brenton Doyle, Jordan Beck, and then in AAA, Ezequiel Fernandez and Zach Veen. And depending on how quickly Charlie Condon moves through the system, struggling right now, you could argue Sterling Thompson is the 6th best outfielder. Is the 7th best outfielder in the franchise right now. So are you going to play him at first base? No, you have Michael Toglia there. So it's a good problem. I've talked about it a lot here on the Rockies Insider. It's a good problem for Colorado to have this depth of outfielders. But this offseason, every offseason is critical for the Rockies, for them to get back into the conversation, get back into relevance, and try to avoid 100 losses next year and try to maybe get somewhere near 500. If you're able to get to maybe 74 wins, that's not exciting. By no means. It does mean you're still going to be 14 games under 500, but you can look and say 74 wins. We were 7 shy of 81 and breaking 500. You feel a lot better about 2026, but you can only do that if you have that good offseason and maybe utilize some of those outfield assets. Now, if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to say goodbye here in just a second. But if you're listening at home, one of the reasons why you got to go over, make sure you're subscribed to the Rockies Insider podcast. I'm going to drop in some audio here right now of Tyler Kinley talking about his Tommy John process, what it was like, his recovery. This is his first year since coming back from Tommy John surgery. What has it been like as a mentor? What's his responsibility as a guy who's gone through reconstructive elbow surgery? What's his responsibility as a mentor to so many of these young guys in the bullpen? I was looking at the roster today and other than Tyler Kinley, everybody else either debuted in 2022 or after. So they've got a lot of rookies in that bullpen, a lot of young players still trying to figure out some things. So he has responsibility with that. And I also picked his brain on how Shohei Ohtani is able to do this while going through rehab, because I think that's a topic that hasn't gotten a lot of press, is the fact that, sure, you've probably seen Ohtani on the mound. He just was on the mound for the first time, I think, last week, pitching finally on an elevated surface rather than just flat ground, and he's hitting. But he's got a whole other job to do. That becomes your job, is to rehab And Tyler talks about that. So for Ohtani to be doing the rehabbing for as long as he needs to do it, and then go out and have his other offensive responsibilities, how impressive is that to Tyler Kinley? He's going to let you know right now. But if you're here live on YouTube, thank you for tuning in and making this one of the top baseball podcasts on Apple Podcasts. Again, greatly appreciate it. So I'm going to try to continue to bring you some really great guests, those folks who cover the team, who travel, who know their clubs really well, and who know the Colorado Rockies and can give some great insight. So tomorrow's guest, nobody better than filling all of those shoes and all of those roles, Danielle Allentuck, back in town for the Orioles series. Jackson Holliday is going to be here. So is his father, Matt. So is his brother, Ethan Holliday. Maybe we'll see Ethan Holliday around Coors Field a lot more if he ends up going first overall and maybe goes to the Colorado Rockies or slips to the Rockies with the number 2 pick. Got to think somebody between the Marlins and Rockies is going to win it. They're between the two of them. They're close to 50% of all the first place ping pong balls in the draft lottery. So kind of par for the course. The 2 worst teams in the National League. Nobody can capitalize off playing a really bad team. They just end up splitting the series. But really excited to talk to Danielle tomorrow. That'll be around noontime. Of course, make sure you're following on Twitter. That's where you can get those updates when I'm going live, at Patrick D. Lyons, at Patrick D. Lyons MLB, and at Rockies_insider. Really looking forward to previewing this Orioles series, which is going to be a really fun weekend. So thank you all for coming around, jumping in the chat, leaving those wonderful comments. Please make sure you're doing that over on the podcast side as well, wherever you might listen to this. So appreciate the momentum. But unfortunately, as I like to say, that momentum is only as good as my next show. So, of course, I will talk to you tomorrow.